Reborn. I secretly got into college without him knowing. Ivy who, are you listening to me? I stood there in a daze. My fiancé Flynn Gu waved his hand in front of my face. What's wrong with you? Why are you spacing out? What? I was still somewhat dazed. Are you feeling unwell? If you're not feeling well, I can go to town to pick up the mail for you. Mail? I jolted suddenly, when I saw the unfamiliar yet familiar surroundings and Flynn Gu's young, handsome face. My eyes were filled with disbelief. I quickly ran to the water vat, and only when I saw my own reflection, 30 years younger, did I finally realize I had been reborn. Reborn on the very day the university admission letter arrived. Ivy who, I'm fine, there's nothing wrong with me. I looked at the man I had loved all my life, never imagining he could have done so many things behind my back. After a moment, I struggled to suppress the anger in my heart and smiled at him. I've already asked the team leader for leave. I can go pick it up myself. Dan is still waiting for me at the intersection. I'll head out now. With that, I left Flynn Gu, who was frowning, and quickly ran toward the village entrance. In my past life, it was also on this day that Flynn Gu went to the post office to pick up the package for me. When he came back, he was in low spirits and told me that neither he nor I had been admitted to university. Although I was heartbroken about failing the exam, he and I had grown up together since childhood, and I had never doubted his words, so I didn't verify the truth of the matter. It wasn't until before my death that I received an email from his lover, Remy Bai. Inside were intimate photos of Jiu Nanchen and Remy Bai from different periods. There is also a yellowed, aged university admission letter, dated 1977, the very year I took the college entrance exam. Shock, anger, humiliation, and unwillingness. All these complex emotions surged within me. My blood boiled with rage until I was literally angered to death. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to 1977. I ran all the way and finally caught up with the ox cart. The donkey cart jolted along for over an hour before finally reaching the town. When I stepped out of the post office, holding the freshly received Tsinghua University admission letter in my hand, tears streamed down my face. In my past life, I never got to attend university. I stayed in the village and married Flynn Gu, soon becoming pregnant. After getting pregnant, my morning sickness was severe, so I gave up on the idea of retaking the college entrance exams. Flynn Gu took the college entrance exam the following year and was admitted to Peking University, after which we saw each other less and less. Later on, Remy Bai appeared. She was Flynn Gu's university classmate, and after graduation, they joined the same company. From then on, wherever Flynn Gu went, she followed, always seen together, appearing to outsiders as a perfect match. And I, confined at home, had to not only care for my paralyzed mother-in-law but also raise twin children. Under the relentless toll of constant labor, my skin gradually lost its luster, and the light of hope slowly faded from my eyes. Every time Flynn Gu appeared before me with the radiant Remy Bai, I could see the disdain and contempt in his eyes. Gradually, he began to openly despise me, never missing a chance to mock me as an uneducated housewife. Compared to his and Remy Bai's impressive resumes, my high school diploma is indeed insignificant. Not only did he look down on my low education level, but the two children also openly or subtly expressed their disdain. My son, holding the invitation to the academic awards ceremony, said to me, "Don't bother coming since you're not educated. Dad and Aunt Bai can attend as my family representatives." My daughter often says, "Mom, why are you upset? It's not like you didn't know you're the least educated in our family." Later, I became increasingly less confident, gradually feeling inferior to others. Then, I developed a psychological disorder, and the word academic degree became a source of distress for me. But at this moment, Remy Bai sent me evidence that Flynn Gu had been cheating on me with her for years, along with that old admission letter. I regret it. I regret spending my entire life living for others. I hate myself for being blind and loving the wrong person. Fortunately, I've been reborn. The university admission letter hasn't reached Flynn Gu yet. I haven't married Flynn Gu. I didn't even give birth to those two ungrateful wolves. There's still time to make things right. When I got home, I hid the admission letter where Flynn Gu couldn't find it. I flipped the calendar to the 25th. The day the scholar would return home. I drew a big circle on the date above. Then I drew another circle on the 1st of next month, which marks the start of Tsinghua University's semester. There are still 10 days left before Flynn Gu and I can leave this place. The only difference is, his destination is his hometown, my destination is Tsinghua University. Looking back at the house where Flynn Gu and I currently live, it was built in 1975 when we were sent to the countryside, funded by his parents who were worried he wouldn't have a good place to live. The house has 2 bedrooms and a living room, with bedrooms on either side and the living room, main hall, in the middle. I arranged all the furnishings in the room myself. After living here for so many years, I've long considered this place my home. However, I probably won't be coming back here in the future. As I was tidying up to prepare a meal, a fellow scholar who came to the countryside with me suddenly rushed over. "Bachelor who? Is Bachelor who at home?" I wiped the water off my hands and opened the courtyard gate. "Bachelor who? You must go see Bachelor Gu immediately. He fell into the water trying to save Remy Bai." Fell into the water, Remy Bai. In my previous life, when I went to the school with my child to find Flynn Gu, I saw Remy Bai walking and laughing with him. That was my first time meeting her. In this life, could it be that my rebirth caused a butterfly effect, leading to Remy Bai appearing earlier? By the time the scholar and I rushed to the riverside, Flynn Gu had already been rescued and brought ashore. He was soaked and crouched on the ground, holding an equally drenched Remy Bai in his arms. Remy Bai hid in his arms, crying so pitifully that it tugged at the heartstrings. Seeing me arrive, Gu Nan abruptly let go of Remy Bai and looked at me nervously, seeing the two of them intimately embracing again. Somehow, not a single ripple of emotion stirred within me. I swept my gaze over the crowd of onlookers, pausing on a dark-skinned man. I've seen this man in my previous life. He was Remy Bai's husband. After Remy Bai was admitted to university, she asked for a divorce from the man. The man refused, using the life-saving favor from the past as leverage. This incident caused quite a stir in the capital at the time. The couple's marriage dragged on for 2 years. And it was only with Flynn Gu stepping in to mediate that they were able to divorce smoothly. Watching the man glare angrily at Flynn Gu, and seeing Flynn Gu look at me with nervous unease, I couldn't help but chuckle silently. It seems my rebirth cut short 2 ill-fated relationships early, yet forged 1 blissful marriage instead. In the previous life, Remy Bai fell into the water, was rescued by a country fellow, and the two eventually married. Later, she got into university, grew ashamed of his status, and demanded a divorce, but my rebirth changed fate. This time, Remy Bai, who should have been saved by that country fellow, was instead rescued by Flynn Gu, who couldn't swim. Observing the intimate familiarity between Flynn Gu and Remy Bai, it seems they've known each other far longer than I had imagined. On the way home, Flynn Gu seemed hesitant to speak, while I remained silent. After seeing through Flynn Gu's true nature, any feelings I had for him were long exhausted by the hardships of my past life. In this lifetime, I don't care who he ends up with, as long as it's not me. I went straight into the kitchen when I got home. After all this time, I was already starving. I took out the food I had bought from the state-run restaurant in town and reheated it. I had planned to eat alone, but I would be leaving this place in just 10 days, to avoid causing trouble. In the end, everything remained as it was, of course. If Flynn Gu were still a man and took the initiative to break up with me to be with Remy Bai, I wouldn't object. At the dinner table, Flynn Gu, who had been hesitating to speak, finally opened his mouth. Did you receive the admission letter when you went to the post office in town?" I put down my chopsticks and looked directly at Flynn Gu. I really wanted to ask that question. Since you already knew Remy Bai back then, why did you hide my college admission letter? But after a moment's thought, I laughed at my own foolishness. That was already a lifetime ago. In this lifetime, Flynn Gu lost the chance to conceal my admission letter today. No, I'm not afraid of Flynn Gu investigating. He doesn't have my college entrance exam ID number. In such an era without the internet, even if he tried to investigate through connections, by the time he got the results, I would have already reported to Tsinghua University. The dinner table remained quiet afterward. None of us mentioned Remy Bai. I didn't think it was necessary, and as for Flynn Gu, he had a guilty conscience. On the way home from work the next day, I saw Remy Bai walking side by side with Flynn Gu, coming from the opposite direction. The two were chatting and laughing, with Flynn Gu's eyes full of joy. How long has it been since I last saw such a smile? I can't quite remember anymore. Flynn Gu didn't notice me approaching from the opposite direction until we reached the courtyard gate. Upon seeing me, he instinctively distanced himself from Remy Bai. A fleeting look of disappointment flashed in Remy Bai's eyes, which I happened to catch as I observed her. Remy Bai was very beautiful, tall and slender, with fair skin. She wore a white shirt and black pants. The hard work of supporting rural development as a scholar sent to the countryside left no trace on her. No wonder Flynn Gu, in both his past and present lives, got involved with her, in the past life. The family responsibilities Flynn Gu abandoned were shouldered by me alone. I won't resist in this lifetime. I wonder if Flynn Gu would be willing to let his Remy Bai resist. Oh, Remy, her name is Ivy she's Remy, listen, how affectionate that sounds. After all these years of knowing each other, even during the best of times in our relationship, he still called me by my full name. Seeing Flynn Gu looking nervous and hesitant, I smiled and extended my hand, taking the initiative to introduce myself for him. Hello, my name is Ivy I'm Bachelor Gu's younger sister from the neighborhood. Upon hearing my self-introduction, it was clear that Flynn Gu breathed a sigh of relief. Remy Bai politely shook my hand and said, "Hello, I'm Remy Bai." After greeting them, I smiled at the two of them and said, "You chat, I'll go cook first." Flynn Gu saw me leave and took a step to follow. But then he remembered Remy Bai beside him and ultimately withdrew his foot. Returning home, I changed out of my clothes and went to the kitchen to cook. Before long, Flynn Gu walked in, frowning. He stood at the kitchen doorway, looking as if he had something to say. Seeing that I kept working with my hands and showed no intention of asking him, he finally couldn't hold back and spoke up. "Did you just say you're my childhood neighbor?" I originally thought he came to explain to me why Remy Bai had sought him out. I never expected him to be so good at shifting the blame. Could it be that the habit of being suppressed by him and always looking up to him in my past life has followed me here? I stopped what I was doing and stared at him without saying a word. At a time like this, shouldn't the one who feels guilty be the one to explain? He saw that I wasn't saying a word, and the guilt in his heart could no longer be concealed. Don't misunderstand, Remy Bai came to see me to thank me for saving. The words stopped abruptly at this point, so he knew he couldn't swim after all. I see. I didn't care about his explanation. After speaking, I continued with my work, perhaps out of a guilty conscience after all. Flynn Gu, who in his past life believed in the principle of a gentleman stays away from the kitchen, actually offered to help me cook. I didn't refuse and let him be. After the meal, I tore off a page from the calendar. Only 8 days left before leaving this place. Time suddenly felt like it was passing so slowly. Before going to bed, I started tidying up the things in the room. I unraveled the half-knitted sweater for Flynn Gu, rewound the yarn into balls, and prepared to knit a sweater for myself. Then I took the half-finished shoe sole meant for Flynn Gu and without hesitation cut it to fit my own size. Looking at my shoes with soles worn down to a thin layer, I realized how foolish I had been. The next day, Jiu Nanchen still hadn't returned by dinner time. In the past, if he couldn't make it back on time, he would always send someone to let me know. As the sky grew dark and there was still no word from him, I locked the courtyard gate and decided to go to the information point to inquire. Although I no longer love him in this lifetime, after all, his parents took great care of me, an orphan girl, after my own parents passed away. Out of both emotion and reason, I should find someone to ask about it. Having made up my mind, I went to the village's scholar station and found the male scholar who often worked with Flynn Gu. When he saw me, there was a hint of pity in his eyes. "I think I already know who Flynn Gu is with." Did Flynn Gu go to see Remy Bai? The male scholar was momentarily stunned, then suddenly understood. The village is just that small. How could Flynn Gu's interactions with a very beautiful female comrade possibly escape my notice? How laughable it was that I was truly kept in the dark in my past life. On the way back from the bachelor's degree program, I passed by a small grove. I faintly heard the voices of two people coming from the woods. "Brother Flynn, when are you going to leave that old hag and be with me?" It's Remy Bai's voice. I hid behind the tree, touched my face, and rubbed my rough hands. Could I have already become a haggard woman at such a young age? At that moment, Flynn Gu's voice, struggling to suppress itself, rang out, "Remy, Remy, let me touch you, let me touch you." Following that came Remy Bai's shy moans. I pretended to leave, as I truly have no habit of eavesdropping on such intimate moments between two people. Before I could step away, Remy Bai's voice rang out again. Wait, you haven't answered me yet." I lowered my raised foot and stayed. I also want to hear Flynn Gu's answer. My intuition tells me that this answer is related to how he deceived me and hid my admission letter in our past life. After a moment, Flynn Gu's voice sounded slightly suppressed and hoarse. "Remy, Ivy who is good at housework and knows how to take care of people. Moreover, my parents have always treated her well. After we return, I will hold a wedding banquet with her in the countryside and let her stay to take care of my parents. Once you get into university, I will register our marriage with you. In the future, legally, you will be my wife. So, will you give yourself to me? You're so bad." Hearing Flynn Gu's reply, I felt as if struck by lightning. So that's how it is, that's how it is. Ever since my rebirth, I had always thought it was just Flynn Gu's male pride acting up. I always thought he did that because he didn't score as well as me. Never did I imagine that someone I've known for 20 years. No, including my past life, someone I've known for over 70 years. I actually failed to see through him. Turns out he's so despicable and vile, suppressing the fury in my heart. I returned home, thinking back to my past life. I had to do household chores with 2 young children clinging to me. I also had to change the diapers of Flynn Gu's bedridden mother. I slept less than a rooster and woke up earlier than one. Flynn Gu couldn't possibly have been unaware of my hardships. If he truly cared about me, how could he leave such a mess for a weak woman like me to handle while he enjoys himself outside? In the end, I was just too foolish. Trapped by the childhood affection we shared, bound by the kindness his parents showed me. Fortunately, it's not too late. It's not too late. I pulled out the admission letter, pressed it against my chest. And only after a long while did I feel a sense of relief. The next day, someone from the town clinic came and temporarily assigned me to help there. The days at the town clinic were hectic, so busy that I didn't even have time to think about Flynn Gu. When I dragged my exhausted body and pushed open the gate of the courtyard, I saw Flynn Gu and Remy Bai embracing each other. Without saying a word, I turned and closed the courtyard gate. When I looked up again, I met their complicated gazes. Flynn Gu quickly stepped forward, trying to grab my hand, but I subtly avoided it. I shoved my hands into my pockets, and Flynn Gu gave an awkward smile. "Ivy who, you're back. I heard from the brigade leader that you were temporarily assigned to the town clinic these past few days. How was it? Were you exhausted?" Before I could answer, Remy Bai rushed forward and grabbed my arm. "Wow, Sister Ivy who, I didn't know you were also skilled in medicine. The town clinic actually sought your help. You're amazing, unlike me. Last year when I went to the county hospital for training, I only learned the basics. Now I can only stay in the village to help folks with minor ailments like headaches or colds." As she spoke, she lowered her head sadly. Flynn Gu saw it and quickly comforted. "Remy, how can you say that? Last time I fell into the water, it was you who helped me." As he spoke, Flynn Gu glanced at me guiltily. I didn't understand why he was feeling guilty. We've already been through the woods together, so why act all innocent now? After a tiring day, I had no energy left to watch the two of them put on a show. "Go on without me. I'm a bit tired." With that, I pulled away from Remy Bai's hand and entered the room. Not long after, there was a knock on the door outside, followed by the sound of it being opened. My hands paused as I was tidying the room, and I looked up to see Remy Bai walking in with a smile. I rubbed my throbbing head, really not in the mood to play along with her act. Remy Bai completely ignored my exhaustion. Closing the door behind her as she entered, she rudely began inspecting every corner of my room, leaning against the wall. I resumed my expressionless demeanor, silently watching her rummage around. When she spotted the 2 hideously ugly clay figurines I had placed on the windowsill, she picked them up to examine. With a whoops, 2 clay figurines fell to the ground and shattered into pieces. I'm sorry, Sister Ivy who, I didn't mean to, I really didn't mean to." I watched her performance without changing my expression. Her acting was far worse than those actors on TV, always carrying a strong scent of pretense. Remy Bai, seeing my unchanged expression and the lack of displeasure she had anticipated, found it somewhat dull. "Sister Ivy who, aren't you angry? Isn't this your most important thing?" Is it really my most important thing? I carefully thought back. These 2 clay figurines were made by Flynn Gu right in front of me when I was 15, the year my parents died in an accident. To comfort me and make me laugh, Flynn Gu said, "The prettiest one is me, and the ugliest one is him." He placed the 2 clay figures together and said to me, "Look, even though your parents are gone, I'm still here with you. From now on, I'll be your family." Thinking about how easily I had taken a boy as family and lover just because of 2 clay figures, I couldn't help but laugh at myself. "What are you laughing at?" Remy Bai's provocative expression froze. "Oh, I wasn't laughing at you, don't take it the wrong way." Hearing this, she dropped all pretense and came to my side, leaning close to my ear. "You were outside the woods that night, weren't you?" It wasn't a question, it was a statement. I suddenly realized that this green tea bitch does have some tricks up her sleeve, at least in terms of shamelessness. I'm truly no match for her. I pretended to look at her with confusion. "What's the matter?" Not satisfied with how cooperative I'm being. Indeed, people always enjoy seeing expressions of shock, bewilderment, and complexity on others' faces. No wonder Remy Bai kept trying to provoke me again and again. At this moment, the look on Remy Bai's face satisfied me immensely. Just then, the door suddenly swung open, and Flynn Gu walked in with a complicated expression. "What are you doing?" Seeing Flynn Gu enter, Remy Bai immediately staggered backward, her face a picture of tearful distress, as if she had suffered endless grievances. "Brother Flynn, I didn't mean to break Ivy Who's clay doll. Please don't blame me, you and Ivy Who, okay?" As she spoke, large teardrops fell one after another. Anyone unaware might have thought I had bullied her. Seeing the shattered clay figurine on the ground, a flicker of nostalgia flashed in Flynn Gu's eyes. "It's just a lifeless object. If it's broken, it's broken. Remy is a guest. Was it necessary to make such a scene? If you like it, I'll just make another one for you." After being reborn, when I saw Flynn Gu holding Remy by the river, I didn't get angry. I wasn't even angry when I saw Flynn Gu and Remy Bai sneaking into the woods together. Now, being framed by Remy Bai and being unfairly accused by Flynn Gu, I still feel no anger, perhaps, because I no longer love, I no longer care. That night, when I learned the truth, I wanted nothing more than to destroy that despicable pair, but Mr. and Mrs. Gu had shown me kindness, and for their sake, I held back. Otherwise, as a 15-year-old orphan after my parents passed away, living alone would have been extremely difficult for me. I sighed softly in my heart. "I'm tired. Could you all leave now?" Seeing me calmly shooing them away, Flynn Gu felt as if his punch had landed on cotton. However, he quickly let it go. As in the past, whenever he was upset, I was always the first to seek reconciliation. He believed this time would be no different. He cleared his throat and continued, "Remy, she's been harassed in the village and wants to stay with us for a few days. Do you think you could take her in and let her live with you? Or you could move in with me instead?" Frowning, I stared at the man before me who now felt like a stranger, still unable to believe he could say such things. Let me live under the same roof as his mistress. Let me move in with him in front of his mistress. Does he even have any moral bottom line left? I spoke coldly. First, I have no intention of sharing a bed with a stranger. Second, although we are engaged, we are not yet married. I can't bring myself to do such shameless things before marriage. You. Watching the two of them flush with anger, I walked over and opened the door, signaling for them to leave. At my words, Remy Bai's free-flowing tears once again fell in large drops. "Brother Flynn, please don't be angry with Sister Ivy Who, it's my fault, I shouldn't have come to trouble you." being publicly humiliated time and time again. Flynn Gu's expression turned extremely unpleasant. With a livid face, he pulled Remy by and left. Remy, it's not your fault, you were harassed. You're the victim here, it's others who don't know better. Saying this, they looked at me with an angry expression. You'll stay in my room tonight. Hearing this, Remy Bai's eyes lit up, her watery gaze full of expectation as she looked at Flynn Gu. Then what about you, Brother Flynn? I'll just make do with a makeshift bed in the living room for the night. After speaking, the corner of his eye glanced at me. If I had to watch the two of them putting on such an act any longer, I'd probably throw up. With a bang, I reached out and slammed the door shut, leaving only a stunned Flynn Gu and a secretly smirking Remy Bai. Flynn Gu knows I care about him the most, and would rather endure hardship myself than see him suffer. Otherwise, I wouldn't have taken on all the cooking just because he said, "A gentleman stays away from the kitchen." How could I possibly let him sleep on the floor in the living room? He believes I should feel sorry for him and voluntarily give up my bed to sleep on the floor instead. My behavior today was so unusual that Flynn Gu couldn't understand it for a moment. Brother Flynn, what are you thinking about? Remy Bai noticed Flynn Gu staring intently at my door with a serious expression. Her heart skipped a beat, and she quickly hugged Flynn Gu. Flynn Gu was deep in thought when suddenly a warm, fragrant softness pressed into his arms, easing his tense expression. But remembering that I was still inside the house and could step out at any moment, he immediately pushed Remy Bai away and took a step back. Little did he expect that Remy Bai would pay no heed, continuing to nuzzle into his embrace. This thrilling and novel sensation instantly sent his blood racing. He suppressed his heavy breathing and whispered into Remy Bai's ear, "You little tease, you seduced me, but not now." She's still in the room, inside the room. I had no idea what was happening in the living room at that moment, but even if I had known, I wouldn't have cared. I picked up the shattered clay doll from the floor and tossed it into the trash bag without a second thought. Having lived a second life, since I've decided on the path I want to take, those disgusting and hypocritical affections are naturally not worth my time and energy anymore. By the time I changed the bedsheets that hadn't been washed for days and took them to clean, there was no one left at home. I tore off the accumulated days from the wall calendar. Only 3 days remained before departure. In the evening, I cooked a simple meal for myself. After eating, I went to bed to rest. Exhausted from all these days, I finally had a peaceful night's sleep. Early the next morning, as I pushed open my door, I happened to see Remy Bai coming out of Flynn Gu's room. She was wearing a tank top and shorts, with large patches of snow-white skin almost completely exposed. Noticing me, she smiled. "Good morning, Sister Ivy Hu. Flynn let me stay in his room last night. You don't mind, do you?" I smiled back. "How could that be? If you say so, Bachelor Gu might take it the wrong way. Breakfast is here." Unprecedentedly, Flynn Gu emerged from the kitchen carrying the prepared breakfast. Seeing me come out, he hurriedly called me to sit down and eat. In my past life, Flynn Gu had never set foot in the kitchen. I always thought he couldn't cook. But it turns out he could. He just didn't want to cook for me. Because of my rebirth in this lifetime, some things are ultimately different. Remy Bai hugged Flynn Gu's arm tightly, pressing her soft chest against it. "Brother Flynn, you're so kind." Flynn Gu stole a glance at Remy Bai, momentarily forgetting to avoid her. I noticed the two of them acting shady under the lamplight but couldn't be bothered to call them out, so I picked up my bowl and started drinking the porridge. The breakfast was quite lavish. A large pot of plain congee, 6 eggs, and a bowl of pickled vegetables. Flynn Gu must have used up the food supplies meant for the next 2 days. At the table, Remy Bai and Flynn Gu were exchanging flirtatious glances. Several times something touched me under the table, but I pretended not to notice. "Ivy Hu, last night I let Remy stay in my room while I slept on the floor in the living room." Hearing the overly defensive explanation, I merely responded with a faint hum and continued eating from my bowl. Flynn Gu, noticing my indifferent expression, didn't press the matter further. Remy Bai suddenly said, "Sister Ivy Hu, Brother Flynn is going to accompany me to work today. Could you please ask for leave on his behalf?" Hearing this, I couldn't help but sneer inwardly. For Remy Bai, Flynn GU even skipped earning his own work points for us returning scholars. Since we're about to leave, the commune only provides food rations for the days we actually work. Since Flynn GU is willing to give up his own rations today to help Remy buy, I can't be bothered to interfere. You've got the wrong person. Scholar GU and I aren't in the same team. If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave. I know exactly what Remy Bai is up to. Flynn GU and I are in one team responsible for the Southern District, while another team handles the Northern District. In the past, when Flynn GU needed to take temporary leave, he would ask a teammate with a bachelor's degree to help. Today, Remy Bai asked me to help Flynn GU take leave, simply to let me know that Flynn GU would be working for her today. In my previous life, Remy Bai often sent me photos and videos of her with Flynn GU to provoke me. Having watched plenty of dramas where multiple women compete for one man, how could I not understand the intentions of a green tea bitch of her level? I finished the porridge in my bowl in 2 gulps, picked up the boiled eggs, and got ready to head to work. Take your time eating, I'm off to work. With that, I left. I didn't even bother to notice the complicated look Flynn GU gave me as I walked away. In the evening, Flynn GU indeed brought Remy Bai back again, but I had already finished eating. Looking at the empty rice pot, Flynn GU knocked on the door of my room. "What's the matter?" I asked from inside the room. Flynn GU wouldn't enter my room without my permission. Seeing that I didn't open the door, he stood at the entrance and asked, "Ivy who, didn't you cook tonight? Looks like this despicable couple really wanted to freeload off me. How could I possibly satisfy their wishes?" I pretended not to know. "I've already eaten. If you haven't, you can make something yourselves." During my days at the town clinic, meals and accommodation were provided. What Flynn GU ate were all the provisions I had saved up before. There isn't much food left in the kitchen, only enough for Flynn GU alone, so he thought of the food I had just received tonight. In the past, under my care, although we didn't eat very well, we never went hungry. Flynn GU had never worried about food like this before. Seeing that I remained silent, he ultimately cared about saving face and didn't continue knocking. I didn't bother to find out how they managed dinner. I took out paper and pen and began writing a letter to Flynn GU's parents. The engagement between me and Flynn GU was proposed by his mother, and at the time, it was only verbally agreed upon. Since my parents are no longer here and I've long lost contact with other relatives, my marriage arrangement was entirely my own decision. Now that I no longer wish to marry Flynn GU, I must make it clear to Mr. and Mrs. GU, there are only 2 days left before my departure. By the time they receive the letter, I will already be at Tsinghua University. Even if Flynn GU had known at that time, it wouldn't have changed anything. After finishing the letter, I checked again and found my admission notice safely hidden there, which put my mind at ease. The next morning when I got up, I saw Flynn GU walking in from outside with a small basket of grain. It seemed he had gone to find a solution on his own. After all, the entire household only had rations for me alone. "I'll make breakfast." I took the basket from his hands without asking and went into the kitchen. By the time breakfast was ready, Remy Bai finally emerged from Flynn GU's room. She wore her hair in a braid, tied with a handkerchief and draped over one shoulder. On her nails, there was freshly painted oleander polish. Every move was full of charm. Flynn GU was momentarily stunned. Seeing me enter the room with food, he quickly averted his gaze and took the meal from my hands. I was eating while thinking about what to bring on the way back. Who should I sell the unused things to? Although my parents have passed away, they still left me some money. This money is enough to cover my university tuition and living expenses. In my previous life, after marrying Flynn GU, I gave this money to him to support his education. But what did he do? He spent most of my money on Remy Bai. I argued and made a scene, but for the sake of our 2 children, I chose to endure silently, only to end up with such a fate. In this life, I will only be good to myself, and my money will only be spent on me. After breakfast, I went to work. It was my last day on the job. No work tomorrow. After finishing work in the evening, Flynn GU and Remy Bai didn't return even very late. I didn't bother about them and started packing my things. I don't have much luggage. Not even enough to fill a single suitcase. The little money I've saved over the years has mostly been spent on Flynn Gu. All his clothes, shoes, and socks were bought by me, while I myself have very few, and the few I do have are patched upon patches. I sorted out the bedding and calculated a low price to sell it to Aunt Gui Hua. The furniture in the house will be collected by professionals. I bought all the pots, pans, and kitchenware myself, but they're too cumbersome to take with me, so I plan to sell them. The house was built with money from Flynn Gu's parents, so naturally, it's up to Flynn Gu to handle it. I don't intend to interfere with the items in Flynn Gu's room either. He can deal with them himself. Late at night, Flynn Gu returned alone. He saw me packing things in the living room. He poured himself a bowl of water and sat on a stool drinking it. I felt a pair of eyes fixed on me, making me extremely uneasy. Speak your mind if you have something to say. Flynn Gu placed the bowl on the table and pointed to the stool beside him, signaling for me to sit and talk. I pulled the stool over and sat down across from him, watching my movements. He brought his hand to his mouth and gave a light cough. Ivy Hu, I think you might have misunderstood something. You've been acting quite distant towards me lately. I looked calmly into his eyes and suddenly smiled. But Remy Bai told me you're hers. Flynn Gu's expression changed abruptly upon hearing this. He grabbed my hand, his gaze filled with sincerity. Ivy Hu, don't listen to Remy's nonsense. She and I are just ordinary friends. Besides, we're the ones who are engaged. I'm yours, always yours. What's more, we're leaving the day after tomorrow, while Remy Bai has to stay here. How could I possibly be with her? I laughed mockingly in my heart, but my expression remained unchanged. Got it? Flynn Gu thought I believed his explanation. I couldn't blame him. In the past, he never had to explain anything to me because I would always make excuses for him. Over time, he never explained. This time, he did explain, and seeing that I didn't ask further, he naturally assumed I believed him. Flynn Gu rubbed his hands on his thighs, a subconscious gesture he made when he needed something from me. I didn't ask, just watched him quietly. If he wanted to say it, he would. Sure enough, he said, Ivy Hu, as we're about to leave. I'd like to give this house to Remy Bai. The house is yours, it's your decision how to handle it. No need to tell me, I said indifferently. Flynn Gu was left speechless. Then he continued, you see, a new home needs furniture, pots and pans, things we can't take with us. Could we leave these for Remy? I scoffed. So this was what he had been leading up to. He knew the house was built with his parents' money, so I had no say in it. Asking me was just a formality. But everything in the house was bought by me, so naturally, my consent was needed for how to dispose of them. Fine, she can have them. I was going to sell all this stuff anyway. I'll calculate a price in a bit, and if she thinks it's fair, she can buy everything. Flynn Gu stared at me in shock, not expecting me to say that. In the past, no matter what he said, I would always let him decide. But somehow, at some point, I seemed to have changed, become calculating, mercenary. Thinking this in my heart, the words naturally came out. How have you changed so much that I barely recognize you? Do we really need to calculate such a small amount of money so precisely? I sighed, stood up, and returned to the room, placing a handwritten bill in front of him. These are all the expenses I've covered for household necessities. From small items like pots and pans to larger ones like furniture and bedding, the total comes to 245 yuan. I've already asked the villagers. If we sell these things at a discount, we could probably get about 120 yuan. Since you're just ordinary friends, there's no reason for me to give an ordinary friend 120 yuan. After all, that's not a small amount, don't you think? What a joke. 120 yuan could cover my 4 years of university tuition. How could I possibly give that to the homewrecker who stole my husband and child in my past life? Didn't you say you were just ordinary friends? I threw his own words back at him to see how he'd respond. Sure enough, Flynn Gu's lips quivered. But in the end, he said nothing. I stood up to return to my room, but before leaving, I turned back to Flynn Gu and said, if Remy Bai wants it, have her bring the money as soon as possible. There's a lot of stuff. If she doesn't want it, I'll take it all out to sell first thing tomorrow morning. With that, I went back inside, leaving Flynn Gu sitting there alone, deep in thought. Not long after, I heard the sound of the front door closing. Flynn Gu has gone out. I slept very well that night. Perhaps packing my things made me truly feel that I was about to leave. The day after tomorrow, I can finally leave and rush toward my bright and brilliant future. Did Flynn Gu come back last night? I don't know when he returned. Early in the morning, as soon as I stepped out of my room, I saw Flynn Gu sitting in the living room with a stack of money on the table. I've asked Remy Bai. She wants all the items. Here's the 120 yuan you wanted. Flynn Gu pushed the money toward me. I didn't stand on ceremony either, picking up the money order on the table and counting it, not too much, not too little, just the right amount. Flynn Gu watched as I put the money into my bag, his eyes filled with reluctance. Suddenly, I wondered, did Remy Bai really pay this money out of his own pocket? Flynn Gu's parents sent him $20 every month, which he never gave to me or spent on me. So Flynn Gu did have money. However, whether it was his money or not doesn't matter. What matters is that it wasn't my money being spent. Since Remy Bai wanted the items, there was no need for me to pack them up. Taking advantage of the break, I went to a local villager's home and bought a dozen eggs and some baked flatbread to eat on the road. Since I made some money today, I decided to bring extra, planning to share some with Flynn Gu as a token of gratitude for his care over the years. On my last night in Xiahe village as a rural scholar, I lay down early in bed, feeling the university admission letter wrapped in oil paper and sewn into my inner clothes gave me some peace of mind. Thinking about being able to leave by bus tomorrow at noon, I was so excited that I couldn't fall asleep until very late. Early the next morning, I picked up my lightly packed bag and left the room. I saw Flynn Gu hurrying back from outside. His bag had also been packed last night. Seeing his luggage, I almost laughed. It seems she truly loves Remy Bai. Apart from what was absolutely necessary to take, he basically left behind everything he could. As I stepped out of the hospital gate, I saw Remy Bai standing there with reddened eyes, looking utterly miserable, carrying the luggage. I brushed past her and walked toward the village entrance. From a distance, I saw Aunt Gui Hua standing at the village entrance. Although I sold most of my belongings to Remy Bai, I wouldn't let her off too easily. Last night, I still set aside quite a few things to give to Aunt Gui Hua. Over these years in the countryside, Aunt Gui Hua has helped me a great deal. She had been hinting to me, both openly and subtly, that Flynn Gu was no good, but I was so caught up in my emotions that I didn't take her words seriously. When she saw me coming, she spat toward the direction of the courtyard, cursing under her breath about a seductress. I told you, they've already come knocking at your door. And you still can't see the truth. Aunt Gui Hua thought I was utterly hopeless. I put down the package in my hands and hugged Aunt Gui Hua tightly. The scent on Auntie is still so pleasant, just like Mom's, with reddened eyes and a choked voice. Auntie, after being foolish for so long, I'm not foolish anymore. Let me tell you quietly, I got into university, and I'm planning to leave Flynn Gu to go study. Really? Auntie Gui Hua was so excited she nearly jumped up. I quickly grabbed her. Afraid she might let out a loud wail, I couldn't relax for a moment until I successfully registered at school. You didn't tell Flynn Gu, Aunt Gui Hua whispered to me. I nodded gently. Aunt Gui Hua patted my shoulder, her eyes reddening with a look of deep satisfaction. All right, you child. Before leaving you've given your Aunt Gui Hua 2 pieces of good news. Yes, 2 pieces of good news. I got into university. I don't want Flynn Gu anymore. To avoid arousing Flynn Gu's suspicion, I bought tickets for the same train as Flynn Gu. I went to purchase the train tickets myself, deliberately choosing different carriages. Flynn Gu didn't say much after receiving the tickets, only reminding me to be careful. I will take the train to Wu City and then transfer to Jing City. By the time I arrive in Jing City, the letter I asked Aunt Gui Hua to mail for me should have already reached Mr. and Mrs. Gu's hands. After a day and night on the train, I arrived in Wu City. I gathered my luggage and got off the train. During that day and night, Flynn Gu came to check on me. Seeing that I was fine, he then left. I had originally planned to have a clear talk with Flynn Gu, so we could part on good terms. But when I thought about how he had even schemed with our future marriage in mind, I realized there was no need to explain anything further. on my way to transfer buses, I never once looked back. From now on, the mountains are high and the rivers long. Let all that has passed scatter with the wind. The train to Jing City finally arrived at its destination after 2 days of rattling along, carrying my suitcase and clutching the college admission letter I had carefully protected throughout the journey. I couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. After completing the enrollment procedures, the school assigned me a dormitory. With the money I earned from selling scrap to Remy Bai, I bought new bedding and new clothes. The day of school opening arrived quickly, followed by the intense academic life. In my previous life, I envied Flynn Gu and Remy Bai immensely. Admiring their college education and successful careers, I envied them for knowing so much, so very much. This time around, I can have that too. I deeply cherish this lifetime's opportunity to learn, and apart from eating and sleeping, I spend most of my time studying. I studied medicine. In my previous life, my 2 children with Flynn Gu studied biology and medicine. Now, seeing the professional terms and academic jargon they once used to mock me with again, just SOSO, by the time Flynn Gu noticed that someone else had taken my sleeper berth, it was already the next day, unable to find me. He had no choice but to ask the train police for help. After checking the tickets, the train police informed him that I had gotten off at Wuxia Station. But as for where I went, they had no idea. Unable to find me, Flynn Gu had no choice but to return home first. Upon arriving home, he saw the letters I had sent to Mr. and Mrs. Gu and to him. In the letters, I didn't hide anything from Mr. and Mrs. Gu and explained Remy Bai's situation. Mr. and Mrs. Gu scolded Flynn Gu harshly, but there was little else they could say. When Flynn Gu found out I got into university, he slumped to the ground in despair. He had initially wanted to scold me for abandoning my husband and child, but after seeing my letter mentioning how I witnessed him and Remy Bai entering the woods, and reflecting on my recent unusual behavior, he realized I must have overheard his conversation with Remy Bai. His urge to vent and curse just faded away. After studying at Tsinghua for 3 months, I still called Flynn Gu's parents. On the phone, Flynn Gu's parents scolded him again, but they couldn't change anything. In the end, they just told me to focus on my studies. Not long after, Flynn Gu started writing me letters, apologizing and saying he had lost his mind. He said he regretted everything and hoped I could forgive him. I didn't respond to him, nor did I believe in the repentance of someone rotten to the core. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, 4 years had passed. I graduated successfully, and the state arranged a job for me. During this period, I continued my studies while working. I always feel that learning has no end. There's still so much I don't understand, so very much to learn. I saw Flynn Gu again 7 years later. At that time, I had just gotten married not long ago and brought my husband back to my hometown to visit the places where I once lived. As soon as I entered the courtyard, I saw Flynn Gu and Remy Bai coming out from inside. Flynn Gu had matured a lot and looked much more weathered. Remy Bai remains as charming as ever, yet the weariness in her eyes is unmistakable. Upon seeing me, Flynn Gu was momentarily stunned. He never expected that the plain Jane he once looked down on would change so much after entering university. Over the years, while pursuing my studies, I never neglected to take care of myself. In my past life, I was called a haggard housewife my entire life. In this life, at the age of 20, I was still called a haggard housewife by Remy Bai and Flynn Gu. How could I tolerate this? So even though 7 years have passed, my appearance has surpassed even what it was at 20. And my husband is truly a dragon among men, naturally gifted with extraordinary beauty. This made Remy Bai, who was following behind Flynn Gu, reveal a look of unwillingness in her eyes. I merely glanced at her indifferently, just like the disdain I had for her back then. Over the years, I've heard bits and pieces about their situation. The year after Flynn Gu returned to the city, he took the college entrance exam again. On the eve of the exam, Remy Bai came looking for him. Not long after, Remy Bai's husband, that tough guy, also came looking for him. It turned out that after Flynn Gu and I went back to our hometown, Remy Bai couldn't bear the loneliness and soon got involved with the tough guy. They were caught by the villagers, and she had no choice but to marry him. In his previous life, the man supported Remy Bai in taking the college entrance exam, and Remy Bai successfully got into university as wished. In this life, because Remy Bai had a past with Flynn Gu, the man absolutely refused to let Remy Bai take the college entrance exam, with no other choice. Remy Bai could only sneak out, find Flynn Gu using the address he had given before, and moved into the Gu family's home. Mr. and Mrs. Gu had already known about Remy Bai from my letters. They also found out that Flynn Gu had slept with Remy Bai and could only urge the two to hurry up and get married. But before the wedding could take place, Remy Bai's husband showed up. Enraged, Mrs. Gu suffered a stroke on the spot, a few years earlier than in her previous life. When Flynn Gu proposed breaking up, Remy Bai threatened to sue him for promiscuity, forcing the Gu family to step in and pay a hefty sum to help Remy Bai divorce her husband. After the divorce, Remy Bai quickly married Flynn Gu. After marriage, the household was in constant chaos. Affected by this, Flynn Gu failed the college entrance exam again. Flynn Gu blamed Remy Bai entirely for his second failure in the college entrance exam. Without me, the so-called haggard housewife of his past life, managing the home front, the two of them often had major fights every 3 days and minor quarrels every 2. Even the Women's Association director would avoid them when she saw them coming. After failing the college entrance exam for the second time, Flynn Gu didn't attempt it again. Freed from the constraints of being labeled an intellectual, Flynn Gu's true nature was fully exposed, and even worsened. He secretly fooled around behind Remy Bai's back. As for Remy Bai, she was clearly no pushover either. How could a green tea like her settle down peacefully with Flynn Gu? She would never dream of tending to Flynn's mother, changing her diapers and such. While Flynn Gu was out looking for fun, she was doing the same. Flynn Gu plays around, and so does she. Whenever Flynn Gu mentions divorce, she goes to his factory to make a scene. The couple can't stand each other, but they have no choice but to make do. In this lifetime, I had 2 children with my husband, a son and a daughter. My son and daughter are filial and kind-hearted, never looking down on those with less education than them. They excel in their respective careers, and every time they receive awards and give speeches, they never forget to thank me and their father for raising and educating them. This brings me great comfort. I don't regret defying the pressure from my past life of having 2 ungrateful children by giving birth to them. In this life, I left that scoundrel behind and have lived happily and fulfilled.